What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash overview to do with you guys. This is the Kershaw Strobe, the 1086 Strobe. You can see there at 1086 Diskin design. I believe that's matte Diskin. You can correct me if I'm wrong. This design, I believe, has been out for a while, though. If you check sites like Knife Center, it'll show as discontinued. You definitely still can, sorry, just stuttering all over the place today. You definitely still can purchase this knife. This knife was provided for review by my good friends over at Neves Knives. That's Jared and Kara Neves. They're amazing people. They, lent me a whole bunch of amazing budget knives so that I could work them into my quest for the perfect budget knife series to use as examples. I really appreciate that, guys. If you're not subscribed to them, please, take a moment to check the link in my description or down in the comment section. I'll pin a comment. Head on over to their channel, subscribe, turn your notifications on. They're awesome people, and they provide some amazing content. Let's go ahead and get a measurement here overall on the Kershaw Strobe. From tip to scale, you're looking at about 7.5 inches of knife. This knife has one of those odd aesthetics where it actually appears to be a larger knife than it is. So 7.5 inches is going to be medium by most people's standards. How about on the blade? You're looking at likely about a 3.3 inch blade with a 3.25 inch cutting edge, maybe 3.3 inch cutting edge. You can see there how that's happening is the curvature of the blade is allowing this area right here in front of the sharpening choil to come right up, basically perfectly in line with the line that I'm using to measure the length of the blade. How about some size comparisons? Overall length up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. You can see there definitely medium in terms of a comparison between it and the Ontario Rat. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at about 8 or 8.1 inches overall, so you can see they're still smaller. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 is coming in a little bit shorter at about 7.25 inches overall. So this is the closest size comparison I can give. It is longer. It is also not quite as tall in terms of carry profile and overall space taken up in your pocket. It's definitely going to be maybe slightly easier to carry, though there is some contouring on the scales, making it a little bit wider overall than a knife like the Spyderco Para 3, but still not super wide or anything like that. Let me give you an example of the action here. We have a manual flipper. That's right. This is a Chinese-made Kershaw that is not assisted. That was what stuck out about this knife to me amongst the myriad of knives that was sent by Neves Knives. This has a tuned detent and flipper tab. It has excellent action. It runs on bearings. Now this knife has been used. I imagine everybody's individual experience will be different. Jared and Kara have been using their knives. You can see there it's likely been resharpened. So the action is going to be, I don't know, it's going to be perfectly indicative of your experience. Obviously, if you only use your knives in an office setting and you clean them all the time and you take them apart and you polish everything, you polish all the surfaces, then your experience is going to be a little bit different. I would imagine it probably feels about like, fairly similar to this. It's not going to be perfectly drop shut, but you can definitely shake it shut a little bit. The action, I think, is what I want to focus on here. In terms of the flipping action, it's perfect. It's just really impressive, and it's always nice to see a budget knife that has a well-executed flipper and detent design that doesn't have an assisted feature. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the assisted feature. It's an extra part. A torsion bar is something that probably won't break, but could. And if you have a design that utilizes that torsion bar and does not have a detent hole, then you have a knife that will not stay in its closed position if that torsion bar breaks, making it essentially just a dangerous sharp piece of metal. So I really like that. I think that's cool. How about weight on this guy? So what we're looking at here for materials is solid. You could call this a steel frame lock. I talked about this before because these are more overlays than they are scales, and those are pretty thick steel slabs there. So you could call this a steel frame lock with overlays. I'm not really sure exactly what you want to call it, but they are solid. And then we have some I don't know if you want to call it FRN or Zytel, the plastic contoured scales that are sitting on top there with the Ks. It's not going to weigh much, but it'll contribute a little bit to overall weight. So this knife weighs 4¼ ounces. So you're looking at 3¼ inches of blade for 4¼ ounces. That's going to be a little heavy by a lot of people's standards. In terms of the overall profile of the knife, which I always say is much more important, that compared to, here's the thing. Without looking at the object, 4¼ ounces is 4¼ ounces, So just that's why I say the profile of the object is very, very important. Are you going to get the best weight to blade ratio on a knife like this? No. Is it the most crucial factor that you should consider on a knife when you're deciding whether or not it's appropriate for carry? No. I think the combination of the weight on this guy and its carry profile are more than adequate for anybody's EDC use, though a lot of people will simply just prefer to carry a thinner, lighter knife. But I don't have a problem with it at all. So let's take a look at the anatomy of this knife. What we have here is a simple drop point blade with a flat that carries out only to about, it's like 35% the length. You have a very interesting swedge that's just more of a notch cut in there, and then the rest of it is almost fully flat ground, especially out to this part here. It doesn't say, but I believe this is using HCR 13 MOV steel, which is no surprise. I think Kershaw has... what's the joke? They have like a lifetime supply of it. Look, at this price, which we're going to talk about, there's nothing wrong with HCR 13 MOV. HCR 13 MOV, I kind of throw it in there in the mix of, it's definitely a steel that you're going to see on knives under $50. It's perfectly acceptable alongside steels like, AUS 8, D2, VG10, HCR 14 MOV, which I'm not 100% sure exactly how it differs from HCR 13. There's a bunch of steels in there where it's like, if it's under $50, yeah, it's perfectly acceptable. It's a stainless steel. It's going to hold an okay edge. It's fairly easy to resharpen, and it's fairly tough. It's perfectly acceptable for a knife, in this price range. We do have, like I said, an edge that comes down, or it's got a long ways to drop, being almost fully flat ground from especially up here. Let's use my fancy new calipers that I still haven't removed the tape on. I don't know if you guys know, I do a bunch of this stuff. I do a bunch of reviews all in a row, pre-recorded. Let's get a, whoops, let's zero it out there. It's going backwards. I like these calipers a lot more than my old ones, definitely. Blade stock thickness, 117 thousandths there. That makes perfect sense to me. So fairly thin blade stock coming down to a pretty darn thin cutting edge. The way that this is ground, it's definitely going to accentuate slicing tasks and puncture tasks. You do have a tip that's going to be fairly delicate. It's not quite as pokey, not quite as splinter-gittery as the PM2, but yeah, just be cognizant of that if you're going to go digging around or picking locks with this thing. There's no thumb stud or anything in the way of the cutting path there, so regardless of how close you want to get the material up to the frame, you're going to be just fine there. Moving down, actually, let's talk about the flipper tab. The flipper tab is nicely rounded off in all spaces, but given the shape of it and how small it is, it does kind of dig into your finger a little bit. Not a deal breaker at all. This knife, I instinctively want to push button it, but it absolutely can be light switched, in which case it's a little bit more comfortable. Not that big of a deal. Moving down to the scales here, you can see the steel scales have been nicely chamfered. They're very smooth. They have the same tumbling finish as the blade, which I didn't go over. Looks really, really nice. I wish that they didn't have to print China on the blade, but they do, so whatever. I don't mind how it says Kershaw there, though. Nice T8 adjustment pivot there. You can see the tops of the pin there for the stop pin. There is no shouldering back here, but that's okay. There's plenty of surface contact there. It's going to be just fine. You do have, what I really like on this, the contoured overlays. Now, I'm not a big fan of FRN, and I'm not a big fan of Zytel or whatever other plastic or plastic-like materials. But on this price, at this price range, I don't care too much. You've got 3 T6 screws holding it in. It is what it is. I don't like T6, but I can understand them using those on something like this. I like this design. You have this thick, beefy, I mean, for this size of knife, you have a beefy steel frame lock with these partially shadow boxed contoured overlays. And what it creates for is a nice aesthetic look. And they keep their manufacturing costs down. It looks nice. It creates that nice contouring. And that creates for, you're limited in terms of the overall space for your hand, especially if you want to get your whole hand up there. You're limited by that flipper tab. But the ergonomic experience for where you have to put your hand is just great. It's very comfortable. I love contouring. And when they do it just right, like this, I mean, that's awesome. I wish we would see more knives where the entire overlay was shadow boxed like this and like G10. And if you could imagine with me, if there was no flipper tab here and maybe a choil and just even more ergonomic room. I mean, we're getting into my Quest for the Perfect Budget Knife series, which you can go watch if you want to hear me talk about that. But I really like this. I think that's a good design. I wish we could see that more. I'm not a big fan of the FRN, but that's okay for this price range. We have a backspacer made out of similar material. It does fit in there nicely. It's nicely sandwiched. Fit and finish on that thing is just fine. It's got a sort of diamond pattern. I don't know if you want to call it diamond pattern. Little scallops out of it. There is a little bit of traction there. No issues with it at all. It looks great. You have a nice, simple Kershaw deep carry pocket clip that is absolutely functional. It's very easy to get the knife in and out of your pants with one hand. It goes completely deep. You can see it wraps all the way around and sort of hooks underneath the scale on both sides. So it is right or left-handed tip up carry, as all flippers should be. The bill's a little weak on this guy. If you're wearing pants with thick material, you're going to have a little trouble getting it over the outer part of your pants. But it's not a clip that runs nearly the same risk of breaking off versus, what's a good example? A clip like this. Pocket clip like that can easily get caught on something and break off. Pocket clip like this, probably not going to happen, but it's one of those things, there's going to be a trade-off. This knife is not centered, but that's probably because they've been using it. Now, if you get yours and yours isn't centered, I'll tell you what the price is here in a second, but I don't have a problem with that. Basically, a knife in this price range, I just don't want it to be rubbing. Generally, the centering can be adjusted, a combination between loosening the scale screws, loosening up the pivot. There's a trick you can do with a piece of paper. I'll have to do a video on it sometime, but generally knives are pretty easy to recenter, and if they don't center up, oh well. This knife does not have blade play currently, and it locks up at about, that's like 40-45% something. For a knife that's obviously been used, I have no problem with that. That's great. It seems to be a very durable knife, and with this being a steel frame lock, liner lock, whatever you want to call it, it is steel on steel contact there, which is great. That's going to minimize wear. Overall, this is a really impressive design. There's a couple of weird things, like I kind of wish there was some jimping up here. No big deal. The flipper tab is a little bit kind of pokey, not that big of a deal. There is a rise here in where you would engage the liner lock, and there's some jimping there. I found that for whatever reason, that's really biting into my finger. You can see there, I've been flipping this over and over and over again. I've got a lot of dead skin on my thumb, but flipping this over and over and over again, it does kind of wear my thumb down here, and it wears my finger down from flipping it, but it's not that big of a deal. You guys know I don't like FRN and I don't like T6 body screws, but I can understand where they, why they had to go there with that on this design. But really, I mean, this is going to negate all of that. The price on this guy, now I don't know 100% if it's actually discontinued. It shows as discontinued on sites like Knife Center, but I can definitely still find it out there. You can find this knife for anywhere between $20 and $35. Even on the higher end at $35, I'd still say this is a good deal. I really like this design. It's straightforward and simple. It does not have the assisted feature. It's utilizing a steel that's going to be just fine. Certainly well better than a lot of the other junk steels that you find in this price range. Say you find this knife on average about $27. Can I recommend it? Oh yeah, all day. This is a really cool design. It's so simple and straightforward, and it's kind of boring in aesthetic. So I think maybe more people are aware of it than I thought, but I was definitely not aware of this model up until just now. And I really like it, especially after handling it. It's got that nice, solid feeling, like just a nice, dependable manual EDC knife. Something you can throw in your truck or your car. If you live in, obviously, if you live in a state where it's okay to have this blade length just out rolling around in your vehicle. But a nice toolbox knife, or if you just want to have a pocket knife sitting in a certain drawer in your house so that you've got easy access to it, or if you want to EDC it, this is just a good all-around knife. I almost would have preferred to see this on phosphor bronze, just so I could complete that whole use it for anything kind of knife, and then if it breaks, oh well, throw it away. But that idea in my head. But really, I mean, even with the bearings, that is generally the case. They've obviously been using it, and it hasn't slowed this knife down much. Judging by, looking at some of their other knives, they have no reserves on these things. The Neves, they just use them. So the bearings are holding up just fine. I can absolutely recommend this knife. This knife is going to go in my most recommended knives playlist, as well as cheap knives I like. So you can take a look at it there, or you can take a look at those playlists if you want to see what else I've recommended. Like I said, there will be an Amazon affiliate link down in the description for those of you who want to purchase this knife for yourself and support my channel, along with some other things that I think are really useful for everybody. But yeah, guys, that's about all I can say. This is a really cool, just kind of under the radar budget knife that's made by Kershaw. Kershaw generally makes good stuff, and this knife is not an exception. It's absolutely a great piece. So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe to my channel, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.